What is going on, everybody? Boilon here, and I finally did it! I beat difficulty 8, node 6 with my new Avengers. Now, some of you guys may have caught my last video, and I've been basically trying to min-max this node and do the bare minimum, what I think is the bare minimum investment into this team in order to clear this node 6. Because if you remember from my previous video, if you can't clear node 6, well, you're not going to be able to beat your score on a max difficulty 7. So I finally managed to clear this node and then go on to clear the other nodes. Node number 7 with this team here. I do have a huge city villain, so I'm not going to be covering this node specifically because I feel like my team is far too big to be able to give good advice on this on a min-max perspective. Node number 8 with global blasters with these characters here. That one wasn't too bad. And then node number 9, finally, this was easy. To get my node, my 9 node run. Now I will not be doing node number 10. Now you might be able to do it with the team that I have, but you know, by the time that I finished node 6, my Ronin had died, and actually Tigra had died, and we're going to talk about why that happened. But we're going to take a look at my new Avengers team, exactly how much investment that I put into them, some tips that I have for running the node, and then in the second half of the video, I'm going to try and do it again, but it's probably, I'm going to be honest, it took me about a dozen runs, and that's why I did it on my phone. I wasn't able to actually record my successful run for that because I was just going, you know, I was just rapid fire, just trying to play these nodes. But there's some things that I learned, so I'm going to try and do it again for you guys in the second half of the video, kind of share some of my experiences, share with some things, some do's and don'ts about the node if you're trying to do things like I am, putting in the minimal investment into the new Avengers team, and we'll see how things go. So if you're ready to go, you know what to do. Boil this down. Oh, couldn't find my button. Okay, so first off, this is my new Avengers roster. Some people were wondering how high did I bring them up. So I actually haven't had to put in my Sunday's Alliance War season gold into this. So this is it. I am not putting any more into them. Mostly because I don't actually care that much about the 10th node. I'm going to score pretty well anyways, and I think I could be a shoo-in for 6-star. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. And how many people I actually rank. I'm going to use my alt account towards the end of the run and try to score 400k, I think is the ranking, so that I can see how many people have actually ranked. So from left to, actually let's go from right to left. So I feel like these are actually the least important characters to the well, okay, Thing's not the most important character, but we'll talk about him. So Agent Coulson, this is my 7 yellow, 5 red Agent Coulson. I had some of these T4s already from the Shield days, you know, way back in the day. So I didn't actually put any T4s in. However, I'm not sure if any of these are actually super relevant. Shield allies gain 20% max health. Okay, so that's not bad. That's going to give, not all of them. It's going to give Mockingbird, I think, who's shield. So that's about it. It's not new Avengers, it's specifically shield allies. So it's not even himself. Oh wait, himself and Mockingbird will get 20% health. Not a huge deal. The T4 in the ultimate, in war, clear all positive effects from the enemies with the most damage. Call 2 allies. So this one also isn't a super big deal, mostly because it can help, but they're clearing their own positive effects when you're using it. We'll go back to the Scourges after this as well, in terms of which ones that I used. But yeah, this isn't as big of a deal. So you don't need to have T4s on Agent Coulson. This part here, clear all positive effects. There's actually not that many that you need to clear anyways. And I believe it clears like 2, 3 without the T4. So that's pretty good anyways. Mockingbird, surprisingly, she's not the most important character on this team. Despite I have all these T4s on her, I don't think you actually need all of them. One thing that I would do that's kind of decent is the passive, because applying the taunt to this, you're going to get a lot of shield assaults. Because anytime the characters go below 50% health, you're summoning a shield assault. This is actually a double-edged sword, and we're going to talk about it, but at least if you have the T4s, it gives the taunt to them so that they're going to get hit first, and also they have extra health, so they'll survive a little bit longer. The T4 on the ultimate, this one, again, not super important. The shield medics are pretty good though, and this will help heal your team up a little bit more, and so I think it's probably worth it if you have extra T4s, but it's not a mandatory one. This though, I think is going to be really important to have the special. I made sure to have this because in war, apply immunity to all new Avenger allies. This is going to prevent you, when you have this available to you, to, you know, not get debuffed by a lot. It's basically you're fighting against a whole infestation team, especially when the swarms start dropping. There's a lot of ways to pick up bleed in other instances like that. So this is a pretty good one to have. This is a luxury T4, I think, but I picked it up anyways. I was ended up basicing a couple of times, and the 5% healing across the team wasn't too bad. You know, it really helped kind of keep my character alive. Mockingbird, not super important though. Tigra, I would actually say is one of the most important characters. The problem is that she gets targeted a lot on this node. As far as T4s go though, you probably want to have this one here. Lower damage reduction by 25% for all enemies with bleeds. There's a lot of characters on the new Avengers team that also apply bleed, and lowering resistance for enemies with bleed as well. The ultimate, super important. This is actually a must-have before the passive. It does more damage to AoE, but also clears immunity, and then it applies the trauma. The trauma part is probably pretty important there, so that, you know, they don't flip their buffs and stuff, depending on if you're using Warp World or not. But this is still, applying the trauma to AoE, super important. Now, I ended up picking this one up in War Gain Safeguard. I'm not 100% sure. It does a lot of extra damage as well. I'm not 100% sure, but I thought that if you have Safeguard, it actually prevents that one Scourge from removing your buffs and healing yourself when you have Safeguard, because of the actual mechanics of Safeguard. Only about 80% sure about that one, though. But nonetheless, Tigra does a shit ton of damage, and so between her and Ronin, they're basically going to be your main damage dealer. So that's going to be really important. I make sure to have her at 85, G16, 4 yellow, 4 red. This is pretty much the most I was able to get her free to play. So if you don't have her at the 4 yellow, 4 red and you're at 3, you might need to take her to 90, because you're going to get some additional stats. My stats are going to be a little bit higher because of the extra star rank and with the red star. Now, Ronin, I also had quite a few T4s. I don't think all of them is required. Like, you don't need to have the passive necessarily. It is 50% extra focus for the team. This could be helpful in the sort of the min-max scenario that we're talking about right now, but not super necessary. This one, I would say, is pretty important. The ultimate, not only does it apply trauma, but the extra bonus attacks, and then the rebound chain, 70% extra damage, and rebound chain to 5 targets. Basic attack, not really that big of a deal. You don't need to get that. And the one thing that I would say for the thing, I don't think you need to get all of these, both of these that I have, but the special, this is huge. Going from bonus attack from 1 to 2 times to 4 is a guaranteed extra 2 attacks. And he actually hits pretty hard. Now, you're going to be, most likely, you're going to have him at 7 yellow. And if you do, you have a very degree of red stars. I had him at 6 red, so I decided to pick up the 7 because I have a shit ton of gold promotion credits. So I decided to buy that, and that really helped me out here. So this is my total team power. I want to show you what it was. I think it's at the bottom of my war roster here, pretty close. 717k. You probably could do this with a little bit less, but honestly, what I was doing is I was leveling characters by 5, putting an extra gear tier on them, and trying for like a dozen attempts to see whether or not it worked. Maybe if I was willing to put in like 3 dozen attempts per time, you might be able to like min-max this at 650, but honestly, I think this is pretty safe, and I have a lot of strikers, and so that's something that maybe I could have changed a little bit. Maybe I could have given Tigra a raider rather than a striker, and because really Coulson was the only one that was actually putting out vulnerabilities on the characters, but there's a lot of AoE here, so I was able to still manage to land those quite a bit. One thing that I want to point out before we get to the actual gameplay video of me attempting it for a second time is understanding Spider-Man Big Time's kit. There's 2 of them on the node. It's super hard, honestly, and they just go right for Tigra. So the special, not to mention actually the AoE that he starts with, does a lot of damage. So depending on what Scourges or packs that you're running, this could actually wipe your team just right at the start. But I want to talk specifically about the special because it attacks a secondary target with the highest speed. That's Tigra. And so you'll find that if you have a low team, Tigra can die pretty easily because it actually is unavoidable, and Tigra's evade does absolutely nothing to these attacks. So Spider-Man Big Time hits right through all of Tigra's evades, and it's meaningless for Spider-Man Big Time. So that part is a little bit of a pain in the ass. It also applies offense up and defense up to himself, which when you have that packed up that gets rid of the positive effects and heals him, he's just so hard to get killed because every time that this is happening from both of the Spider-Man, that they're just healing themselves back and forth with the buffs that they have. And they're actually the hardest to kill on that node. The other characters, not that difficult to kill. Arachnid Assault, again, you'll know if you've played this node at all and you've seen any of my videos that this is going to be the most amount of damage that's going to come out at the start of the node. You need to make sure that your characters are basically strong enough to survive 2 non-crit ults. and we'll talk about that as well. They have so many ways of getting buffs, but they're just kind of cyclically healing themselves here. So getting back to the actual the trial itself, I want to talk about the packs that I have. I didn't have all of them on. Okay, so I had 85 packed points. I did not have Experimental Serum 1 and 2, and I did not have Warp World. Warp World is the one where you go under 50% hit points, and it basically flips positive effects into negative effects, and then the same on their side of the field. The problem is that when you're min-maxing this, you're going to go under 50% very frequently, and while that's good for Second Wind, it's bad for Warp World, because basically every other attack is going to send your characters below 50%. I believe it also triggers on the summons too, which does not help because of how many Mockingbird shield assaults are going to be on the field. So that was removed. Now, one thing that you do, power dynamics, this is what I was talking about that heals Spider-Man big time. So it removes all positive effects and some of the other characters, but realistically, it's just Spider-Man big time is so hard to kill that every time he's basically healing 20-30%. So when you're trying to do a min-max run like I'm doing, that your damage is not super high. He's also, a lot of the time he has defense up, so you need to clear that, you need to flip it, whatever you have to do in order to get additional damage onto him, because he's actually the hardest to kill on the node. Snake Eyes. This is something that you need to watch out for when it comes to, and it's fine to leave it on, it's just that you're going to be resetting quite a bit of times because you're going to want to make sure that Spider-Man does not actually crit your characters, any of them really, with the ult. Because there's 2 of them, and if they get that in, you're pretty much effed, and you're probably going to have to rerun it again, which is what I had to do about a dozen of times or so until basically nobody got crit. And so that's 10 hits across my team, making sure that nobody gets hit, because nobody gets critted, because it's just going to do an insane amount of damage, and somebody's going to die. And you want to make sure that you're kind of surviving that opening wave without anyone dying. That's the goal of that. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot harder. The rest of the packs, not that difficult. But I want to talk about where my points landed too before we get to the gameplay. So 1.352 million. I literally just skated through by 2,658 points. What that means is that if you're doing a 9-node run and your efficiency points are not great, then you may not get it. So what I would recommend, maybe you want to try Warp World. I mean, you could be my guest, but I couldn't. I didn't want to do that. You could add in Experimental Serum 1 for the 5 pack points, and that would be enough to basically avoid having to be this, this efficiency fest a little bit. It would make up for, how close I was to that final milestone, which got me a 4-star. So I just wanted to let people know about that one. I did get 4-star Green Goblin. Where am I right now? Of course, as of recording this video, which was on Sunday afternoon, 3185. That's probably still, I would say that's probably still going to be in I'm going to say the 4 to 6%, and the reason why I'm saying that is because I think I'm probably going to get knocked back before the end of this, and that will most likely, it'll definitely give me a high 5-star. It probably won't give me a 6-star. They've changed the way that the payouts work. That's an additional 300 shards here if I land that, but I need 130 plus 200, 330. So this is not going to get me there. That's 143. I would need 1 to 3% to basically guarantee the 6-star, unfortunately. But anyways, let's go back to node number 6. I'm going to rerun this again for you guys. I'm going to try the node again, kind of share with you exactly my thought processes as I'm going through this node. All right, everyone, and we're back. We made it back to node number 6 here. So we're going to get started and giving this one a go. Now, in terms of your layout for this, sometimes I go like this. Actually, so Rona in the middle, a thing over here, and then Tigra. It doesn't make too much of a difference, to be honest, but Tigra does have some on-spawn sort of adjacent, or a vase to adjacent allies. I would prefer if Tigra is on the end rather than somewhere like in the middle. Now, one of the most important things when you start off this battle, and I mentioned this earlier on, is whether or not Spider-Man Big Time kills you. Right, and I said that we're running the same packs, and basically whether or not you're gonna see it right here, right? Actually, we're gonna get Tigra's special. Now, in my opinion, the best possible situation here is hitting Yellow Jacket, but making sure that this does not chain to any of the Spider-Men, because if they do, they're going to get turn bar. Now, this is probably going to hit them. So I had to reset this like a whole bunch of times, honestly. You can see how they get turn bar. And actually, if you don't hit them, you can actually stun one of them with a thing. But you have to make sure that you do not hit them, which is pretty difficult. And what you're gonna see right now is like how easy it is. You saw my characters just got wrecked, right? The AoE just wrecked them. Any crits will cause that to happen. Now I'm gonna try this one more time and see whether or not the rebounding of Tigra ends up hitting Spider-Man. If not, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna play this until it doesn't, and then show you what happens on the next step. It's a very challenging node where honestly a lot of things have to go right. You saw by earlier on that I did manage to clear it with a lot of difficulty. Let's see if it rebounds again. Oh, so we did. So, okay. So we managed to get through that without hitting Spider-Man. Now you can see thing has its turn. So I'm going to stun this one over here. It's also going to clear the positive status effects and then apply the stun and the trauma. So that's fine. And basically this allows you to survive a little bit more because you're only getting hit by one of them. So that's pretty good. Now he's still got the disrupt and trauma, which means he's not going to get any buffs. Typically at this point, this is when I would want to focus on that Spider-Man as much as I can to get him down first. If you can get one of them down, that'd be great. What's going to happen, though, is you're going to end up killing the rest of the Infestation team before you kill Spider-Man. Spider-Man just is so much... They're so much stronger than these other characters. They drop a lot easier. Now, in this instance, you can't spread with the ultimate, unfortunately. You can't spread your buffs because on your turn you're losing it in terms of healing. So that's a little big pain in the ass. I mean, you can do things like this with the special to, you know, clear any negative effects if you need it. I would save it, actually. It'll heal the team a little bit more and give ability energy. But, you know, I usually do this for the speed bar reduction. That being said, I'm still hitting Spider-Man. And one thing that I want to make very clear is try to limit the amount of times that you're actually AoEing or hitting Spider-Man, because it's going to trigger his 20% turn bar. Super important. Now, in this instance, I am actually going to go with the special from Agent Coulson because it's going to give slow to all tech characters. Now, unfortunately, you know, when he's getting turn bar, it's also only one turn of slow. I wish it was 2 turns. So it's not going to be super effective on Spider-Man, but it will be on the other characters, which are all tech at that point. So they're not getting... Now, at this point, I would probably continue... Now, he's got trauma already, so that's not really a big deal, but it is going to apply blind. Now, that's not going to matter that much. Unfortunately, all of Spider-Man's attacks are basically unavoidable. So the blind... and the trauma, like, I would do this for the damage. And also I have a striker on Ronin. So I'm kind of like, you know, trying to kind of get this one. If you can get one of them down, and I realize it's really hard to do. And that's the thing. If they have positive status effects like this, they're just going to heal on their turn. So at this point, I noticed that everyone is still alive, thankfully, somehow. And you can try to put the offense down, which would be very helpful right here, actually. But sometimes with the medic, it just doesn't land. We did manage to actually land at that time. So there's like very critical certain instances where you're going to get a lot of value out of this. Now, in this instance, it probably doesn't even matter where we land this, but there's a striker ISO over here. I'm probably going to land it on for Tigra over here on this side. It's going to clear, there's no immunities clear, but it's going to gain evade and taunts, things like that. It's going to apply trauma and additional bleeds to all characters. You're going to get all these additional buffs as well. Problem is that, like I said before earlier on, there we go. So like the first wave is basically down, and the second wave is probably going to drop. And at this point we have swarms, and Spider-Man big times are still up. It's just, you can't seem to, it's very hard to like not kill Spider-Man before any of this stuff goes off. So I'm really trying to limit the amount of times that we're actually hitting Spider-Man. And it's almost impossible to do because they both get the turn bar. Now at this point in time, they're pretty much about to get their turn, so I'm just going to give offense up to the rest of my team. We're all, see, they just healed back up again. Well, actually that's Spider-Man. We might be able to kill him with the T4. Oh, we did. We got one of them. Okay, so that's actually pretty good. We're in a pretty good situation there. But I have ran into instances where the swarm can actually do a significant amount of damage. We still have everyone alive somehow. This is not unavoidable, though, and Spider-Man has an evade, which is a bit of a pain in the ass. So what we're going to do is we're just going to try to get rid of that. Now, here's the problem, right? So every time you hit Spider-Man, So we're going to go over here with the basic. We don't want to do the Shield Assault AoE because it's going to trigger Spider-Man big time. And at this point, like, what I would really like to do, actually, is do enough damage to him where he kind of does not heal up to 50%. I don't know if we're going to manage that, though. I think he's going to heal. He's got too much hit points, and I think we fucked it up a little bit. Yeah, so he's back up to over 50%. Now he's going to get his energy because we fucked that up. But we're going to have to, you know, carry through anyways at this point. So we got the AoE again. We're going to get another Shield Medic, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Shield Medic. And now at this point, I would apply the stun to Spider-Man. You know, anytime that you can stun him, I believe that stops his turn bar. So we're actually in a pretty decent position here. Now we can go with the AoE. That's fine. Because he's not getting turn bar, right? So at this point, I would also knock back his turn bar with Agent Coulson some more. What I'm a little bit concerned about is actually Swarm using his AoE a little bit here. But Spider-Man, again, like still with the full hit points. But if we can kill some of these other characters, we might be okay. Let's see if we can kill that Swarm. See, now he's going to ult, and the bleeds are really going to suck. Tiger's been dead for a little while, I just realized that, and the Swarm, oh boy. Not good. They're all getting their turns in now. Coulson's still alive, Ronan's still alive. We still have 4, but I think that thing's going to bleed out. Bit of a pain in the ass here, and I'm going to go over here. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go over here. I don't want him to slow everyone. We might be able to keep. We might actually be able to finish this off. Just with a bunch of summons. Oh, we got some slows out. Okay, so that's fine. So what I'm gonna do is actually I'm gonna work on Spider-Man last. I'm just gonna like hit everyone over here, and I might stun him though. Stop him from doing anything. I might be able to kill some of these other guys here. Yeah, so I basically I'm going to leave him for last because we managed to kill one of the Spider-Man. I'm going to knock back his turn bar, though. And I think we did it. I'm not going to speak not going to speak too early yet. He almost bled out there. Oh, okay. There we go. Black Widow's down, Swarm's left. I think we did it. Honestly, I'm going to do the special over here. A lot of extra damage there. Knock back the turn bar. The AoE. Heal up. And I think we did it. By God, I think we did it. Okay, I could put this on auto. You can see how much damage that he takes. Like, holy crap. Like, it's just his health. He's got so much health because all of the characters with the passives, with the war passives, can't believe we managed to do this on video. But there we are. So that is with my team. Obviously, I'm surprised I got it that early on. And this was actually like my second, I think, attempt of doing this. So you might be able to wiggle this with a little bit less of power, but I think that a lot of the T4s are quite important, unfortunately, that make this so much easier to do. So I hope that some of this helped kind of go through my thought process while I'm doing this node, because realistically, I know that some people are going to have challenges with node number 7, and maybe it's just hard for me to do videos for this because my team power is just so goddamn high. But otherwise, you know, node 6 is going to be a block for a lot of people in kind of moving forward and getting higher than their D7 score. So that's it for everyone, and I hope that this helps you guys, and until next time, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you all later. Boilon signing out.